You're listening to the Art of Resilience Show, a podcast that inspires those seeking to uncover their own resilience. I'm your host, Hussein Al-Biati, once a refugee, now artist, author, and entrepreneur. Join me in my mobile studio as we sit down with some of the most diverse, knowledgeable, and resilient guests to discuss their state of mind. Welcome back. It's season 2 of Art of Resilience. I'm your boy and host, Hussein Al-Biati. I am here with the amazing Domonique Debnam. She's here to tell us not only about her remarkable life and resilience, but how to transcend what people think of you, how people pursue their dreams, and how she landed a remarkable job at Nike, and how she even now has the time to teach at Portland State University School of Business. I am proud, incredibly honored, and privileged to have you here. Thank you for coming, meeting us. I want to know everything, so let's take it back a little bit. Let's wind it back just a little bit to where you were born.
First off, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm excited about this conversation and to be in this mobile truck. Like, this is the first time that I can say I've recorded in a van, and I'm excited about that. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Portland is home. Born and raised in Portland, Oregon, Northeast Portland. Fun fact, I was born at the Kaiser where Adidas headquarters now is. That used to be Kaiser. So some of us were born there. I was one of those fortunate ones. So right Northeast Portland. Born and raised.
I love that. So where's your family originally from? Do they sort of migrate here, if you will?
Yeah, so my family, Portland has a really racist history and not so 100%. Far back. So my family, my grandmother, they were actually among the first black people that came to Portland when we were allowed to move into actual proper Portland.
Right.
And they came from, my dad's side of the family came from North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Raleigh-Durham area. They were born in Baltimore, but they had moved to North Carolina and then came to Portland. And then from my mom's side of the family, born and raised in Alabama, and they also came here later in life. So none of my parents weren't born here. Yeah. So with that being said, my brother and I and my host of cousins were kind of first generation Portland Oregonians.
I love it.
My grandmother, she passed away in 2010, but my aunt and my family still owns that house that she bought right when she came right on Holman, and she owned a daycare, so that 108 is familiar to a lot of black people who grew up in Portland, Oregon, who are of my age demographic, and we used to run those streets in Northeast Portland from kind of MLK all the way over to Peninsula Park, and we would stay in that realm. We wouldn't venture too far away, but we had a lot of fun in those days.
That's amazing. I love that. So tell me a little bit more. So, you have this, a lot of people think immigration is just like people moving from outside of the U.S. into the United States. But, immigration is really the idea of just people moving from one place to another. It doesn't 100%. Really matter. So in a sense, you're an immigrant, you know what I mean? Right? A son or daughter of an immigrant.
Yeah.
And I always want to point those things out to people, like, look, even in the United States, there's still movement happening.
That's
right? And we have to appreciate and respect that, because there's always a trend in our stories of how those things envelop. But anyway, so I want to get back into sort of like, your supportive structures, right? In resilience, there's always, we're not doing it alone, right? We 100%. Always have family supportive structures. Tell me a little bit about maybe grandma or father or mother, people who sort of supported you, helped you along your journey.
100%. And I like the way you phrase that question in terms of the supportive structure that has allowed you to be resilient. And so when I think about that, my mother, first and foremost, my mother, my parents divorced when I was 11 years old. And so for all intents and purposes, my mother was a single mom. And I hadn't realized just the value of who she was until later in life, when it came to me that, in the time, I was born in 85. So during this time, my mother, a black woman, she ultimately, she didn't finish college, but she went on to cosmetology school. So after she had me, She went on to cosmetology school, left the banking industry where she was kind of working just to support me.
Yeah.
After that, her and my father married. So her and my father married when I was about 6 years old, 5, 6 years old. Subsequently, my brother was born. He and I are 6 years apart. But during that time, she also started her own hair salon.
Okay.
So, it's a full service hair salon. You know, nails, hair, also barbershop. It was, named after me. So Domonique's Hair Salon.
What? I love that.
And she existed in multiple locations. And as a child, I really didn't realize, like, oh, the salon is moving. I didn't understand as a business owner why you would make the decision to move locations. And now I understand a lot of that is financial. And that is her being resilient to never give up on the fact that she is going to own this salon, and she's going to maintain ownership. She's going to maintain a place where women can come, feel good, get their hair done. My mom was avid, raised us in the church, so they also, you're going to get your hair done, you're going to get a word, right? You're going to leave with that word. But, I think about now understanding Portland and understanding Portland from a property value standpoint. So now I can trace, like, okay, we were on Gleason, right? Laurelhurst kind of area. So, okay, property value there goes up. At the time, Northeast Portland wasn't what it was, so we then moved, the salon then moved closer in to MLK area in Northeast Portland. And then as that area started to rise and different things took place within my family, she moved to Killings, right off of Killingsworth. So when I just think about that and that resiliency and all the things that she taught, my brother and I, and then my mom, she caught cancer in 2005. And so she had a 5-year bout with cancer, and watching her be resilient through that, never losing her faith, crying through it, going through chemotherapy, all the things, but also never, I always admired that she would always, before she left the house, no matter how she was feeling, she would check the mirror and she would look at herself, and she would leave the house in a way that she felt her most proud and in her most best skin. And that for her, that was a red lip, that was some earrings, that was, her gold bangles on her wrist, her hands full of rings. And she went to chemotherapy like that.
Right.
She stayed herself. She continued to get her nails done and do the things that made her feel whole. In addition to prayer and all of those things.
Of course.
Then my resiliency journey, I would say, started in 2010, when, for different reasons, lost both my mom and my grandmother. Two of the women that, raised me and had a huge integral part in my life in shaping me to be the woman that I am today. And so through a subsequent journey that I'm still on, of learning how to heal, of learning how to give yourself time to heal, of learning how to step back and feel those hard emotions. I think sometimes we don't want to feel the hard part. We want to get to the good part. And so we rush healing, we rush emotion, we rush feeling bad. And now I embrace that as, when you feel bad, that is your body alerting you to an area that you haven't processed through yet.
Yes.
So how do you sit in that and then arise more knowledgeable with a greater understanding of you? And when I think of that and sit in that and rest in it, what I'll say is resiliency is our birthright. To your point, as people of color, we don't have the luxury of not being resilient, right? In this world. And so when you think about handed down from our ancestors from generation to generation, surviving however you got over here, to America. For my people, it was, I think about the person that had to survive and decide, I'm not going to jump off the ship. Or the person in my lineage that decided, like, I am going to bear transversing across this ocean, however they did it, through inhumane, unimaginable conditions. Somebody survived. And so I get really inspired by that. When I'm going through hard places, it's like the blood, that's the DNA, the blood that's running within me.
Yeah.
Somebody survived traversing across the ocean in surviving slavery, surviving Jim Crow. Like, survival and resilience, like, that's what we're made of.
100%. I can't agree more. And it is so well put that you would say that it is our right to be resilient. And I can't agree more. I mean, like, diving into my own life and story, that's what I had to do. I had to go back in time, not just my life, my father, my grandfather, his grandfather, all the way back to like Sumerians, all the way back to Ur, which is why Iraq is named Iraq. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. To where people were inventing writing, inventing like where Abraham stood, where our heritage as humans literally began in the cradle. And I'm like, I go way back and I'm like, wow, it is not okay for me at this point in life to not take advantage of everything I possibly can to shed light on people who need the help, who need the leadership, who need like somebody to point that flashlight and be like, look at that path. It's for you. It's not going to be dark all the time. Yeah. The sun will come out, you know. And I went through a refugee camp, but like there are people still going through it. Yes. There are, like, just because I was able to get out, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore. That's true. And so for me, it was, how can I, implore and utilize this fuel, this reservoir, this well of resilience of not only myself, but all of my people. Yeah. Right. And so I always tell people that, like, I hear my ancestors, like, what are you going to do next? Yeah. Or what are you studying next? How are you going to help shed light on these voiceless people? Mm-hmm. And because I was voiceless for so long, learning English, just learning to communicate with people, talking to girls, talking to my friends, Nick Thierry, like, being welcomed, but also being who I am and not conforming to any particular identity while still trying to figure out my own. And, that resilience plays a huge role throughout all of that. Those are the things that we got to remind ourselves with, and remind, our audience with, and remind the youth that they have support around them. So just because you had a bad day or a bad week or you didn't get that job, something out there is better for you, just looming. But if you give up, you'll never know it.
Never get it.
So that's what I want to get into next.
Yes.
So you got yourself to Portland State University. Yep. Tell me about that. Tell me about your journey through school and what happened next. Yeah,
so I graduated Portland State 2008, right? That was when the economy crashed and it was a recession.
I was 2 years behind you.
Yeah, so like having to navigate that was even resilient, right? Like that was kind of the first part of my life where I learned the hard lesson that you can do everything the right way and still not get the result that you wanted. I think that was the first time in life, because prior to that, you're playing sports as a kid and your coach tells you if you work hard, you're like, okay, yeah, I can see the fruits of me dribbling all summer long. Now I am more confident and I'm playing better on the court. You see the fruits of your work in everything you do as a young person. And then when I hit 22, graduated, I'm like, I just graduated summa cum laude. Wow. I just graduated with, the certificate in this, and my double majored, and I had all these internships. I literally did everything y'all told me, and now you're telling me that this, corporate job, the promise,
world collapsed.
Of all that I was doing this for is not gonna meet me. Like, what? So that was a very hard lesson to learn. Like, you can do all the things, check all the boxes, in the timing of what you're trying to succeed in, it might not be the right time for that. Right. You can water this tree, put it in the right sun, and if it's not the season for the fruit to grow, the fruit's not gonna grow. So I like to say now, I graduated when it just wasn't my season, right? I graduated in the wrong season.
Me too. God, you and I have a lot of similarities.
Yeah. So I took this job because, you can't graduate without a full-time job with benefits. That's just like a failure. And that's the misnomer that I believed. And so I took a job that I knew wasn't right for me. I took a job at Albertsons in their management training program. Sure. So I went from, like, oh, I'm going to this business conference, and you know how those are. They got there's wine, and I mean, it's like luxury, to now I'm in a uniform a polo and Dickies, and I'm doing whatever they need me to do in the store. And I'm just like, God, like, I'm sorry. What did I do? I messed up. Well, where was I supposed to turn left and I went right? And during that time, it really made me have to decide, was I willing to do what it take to follow my dream of wanting to work in the industry, right? Like, okay, the opportunity that came was this part-time seasonal sales associate job at the Nike employee store. So again, like, I got my degree. I have, you know, the little fancy cords that tell you are cum whatever. And all of these things, are you going to set all that aside and go work part-time seasonal at retail? If this is your dream, are you willing to do that? And so I had to invest in myself and say, you know what? Forget all the prestige of how this looks to anybody else. Like, you all made this to you and to people who saw me walk across that stage and all of that. Me doing this job looks like a failure to you. I don't care. Me doing this job is an investment in what I know I'm meant to be doing later in life. And I'm going to take that chance.
Right.
So I went and did that. And then the journey just started to unfold. It's funny. I want to say this before I tell the rest of my journey.
Please.
A lot of people hear me tell my story and they're like, oh, wow, it all worked out. And I always like to remind people, I didn't know at the time, though. Like, when I'm making these decisions, I don't know
You're betting on yourself.
I'm betting on myself. Like, there's no way for me to have known quitting my full-time job with benefits, taking a seasonal job that I was going to, one, get kept on past the seasonal period.
Right.
And then there's no way for me to know I'm going to get a job at Adidas.
Right.
And 6 months later than that. So I ended up getting a job at Adidas, entry level.
Right.
In 2010 in June. I didn't know that.
Right.
You know, 18 months prior, right?
How could you?
You don't know that. So you know, I say that to say part of being resilient in my story is just taking that step. You know, Oprah has a quote of like, what is the best decision to make right now? Like, with the information, the resources, and the tools that I have available to me right now, what is the next right decision? And that's how I've navigated my career, is always, what is the next right decision, with presently aware, don't know the future. And living life like that has navigated me from spending time at Adidas for 4.5 years, moved to Boston and worked at New Balance for a while.
Wow.
And then was fortunate to finally realize that Nike dream and come back to and work at Nike in 2015, working in women's sportswear. And as they say, the rest is history. I'm still with the swoosh, and now I'm working in fitness and tennis footwear, which is another exciting foray and chapter in my career.
That is a remarkable journey.
Thank you.
And you know what I love? I'm getting goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie. Like, hope.
Yep.
People define it weird, right? Like, oh, I hope this works out. No. Hope doesn't work for you. It works for everyone collectively.
Yep.
But it works right underneath purpose.
That's powerful.
Right?
Yep.
So like, all of our purposes are intertwined.
Yep.
And hope is like the electricity that comes in and connects them.
Yeah.
Right? And connects them. And it may not come around just yet because your purpose is still not like in tune yet, right? Because just like you walk through that stage and you're doing all these things, but what I love about your story was, am I going to allow my future to be defined by how others perceive me?
That part. Yep.
That's that. If you can if you can overcome that to anybody listening out there, and she's telling you right now, if you can come over, like, that is such a huge thing that hinders people
100%.
From pursuing their purpose and overcoming fears and every factor in the world.
Yep.
Because I've switched careers more times than, you know, I was an entrepreneur. I was doing T-shirts. I was doing refugees. Now I'm doing this, you know. But for me, I'm like, I'm living my life. I'm not living a career.
Yep.
I signed up for life.
Come on. That's good.
You know?
Yep.
And so if you sign up for life, everything is working for you. It's not working against you. And every opportunity is an experience.
Yes.
Not a failure, right? So, you know, I love that you brought that together. And now you're at the swoosh, you're doing your thing. But there's also a part of you that wants to do more.
100%.
So you come back and you start teaching. Tell me about the teaching gig.
Yeah, so the teaching gig came about, and this is, to your point, is so perfect because you talked about us being connected to people and being connected to purpose and hope. And so how I got actually into teaching was because I was connected to Latoya Kamara Manley, who I met at Adidas.
Okay.
Her and I worked together at Adidas, and she was teaching in Portland State School of Business program, and she brought me along in that. And so now today, you know, I'm able to teach, and I love it. And I teach 2 classes, one specific to competitive dynamics, just really helping students understand the importance of using your peripheral vision to inform what you are focused on. Because we appreciate maniacal focus, and that's the way we get things done. And knowing that sometimes a maniacal focus, you can't see the forest for the trees. And so we learn a lot around, hey, yeah, we're in the School of Business. We all have aspirations of working within the sneaker or the consumer packaged goods industry. Let's also see what's going on in tech. Let's see what's going on in real estate. Let's see what societal factors are impacting our consumers' ability or desire or purchasing decisions. So we try to click up and work from like a 40,000 feet level around, okay, what's going on and how do we develop strategic plans and to, you know, inform product or marketing or whatever.
It's amazing.
And then I also teach a partnership with Latoya, a product management course.
Right.
So between those 2 courses, they're within the outdoor and athletic industry certificate track. And I love it. It's a way to give back. You know, I'm a firm believer, to whom much is given, you know, much is required. And there were people that invested in me, mentors that are still, you know, mentors / friends in my life now. And the ability to give back, that fills my cup.
Yes.
It also keeps me humble because you can get caught up, you know, in your own mind, in your own world, working, and these decisions feel so big.
Yes.
And then subsequently you'll talk to somebody who sees it from the outside looking in, and they'll say something so simple, and you're like, wow, like I was caught up in a tizzy and a frenzy trying to make these big decisions. And, you know, somebody in their youth will say like, oh, like, why didn't y'all just do the red one? And you're like, we spent 2 days trying to figure out the color rollout. In 2 seconds, you're like, oh, the red one. So it always gives me that perspective and that humility of like,
I love that.
The consumer probably is going to care about the red one. Like, let me back up and not stress about this.
Exactly. I love that. And what an amazing way to sort of cultivate an idea of like responsiveness, right? But also appreciating who you're serving. Yep. Because ultimately we're all serving each other, people, right? And the product may or may not work out, but ultimately, like, did you learn from this experience? Because again, we signed up for life. We signed up to learn about others. We signed up to, just as much as you like to teach, I'm sure you love to learn. Right. And I think anytime I go speak to kids or anytime I do any kind of teaching or mentoring, I'm also learning a lot 100%. About myself. And that's a very empowering feeling. And a lot of people, I always tell people out there, I'm like, yo, if you get a minute or a chance or a day or an hour, like, go give back some of your time to students who are hungry for your knowledge, and you'll understand that you will be better at that knowledge because you could teach it.
You can teach it.
Right? You'll be better at it because you have to not dumb it down, but have to synthesize it down, right? So that they can understand it. But everything comes down to less is more, right? Like, it's synthesizing. So I love that. I love how you kind of brought it full circle. I really appreciate and admire that about you. So tell us, like, right now, you know, what are you working on? Is there any other side projects, anything like that? Or maybe some words of advice or wisdom that you can impart? I mean, you did a lot already because there's been a lot of gems during this conversation. To young men or young women out there that, you know, whether they're immigrants, refugees, young leaders, young people who want to get into Nike or Adidas, you know, what would you say to them to help them on their journey, you know, to really empower them as well?
100%. I'll get to that question. I like that question a lot. But to the first part of your question of what I'm working on now, working on a couple projects. One of the things that I do is marketing consulting as well.
Okay.
And the reason that I wanted to do that is we learn so much information around and are equipped around how to make these Fortune 500, these Fortune 100 businesses run, and to be able to give some of my experience and knowledge back to small startup businesses or minority owned businesses to help them. That's really the impetus that was like, you know what, I can consult because I can bring some insight that works here to these people, and this knowledge is gold for them. So I do that.
That's amazing.
One project I'm super excited about, this Seas Color project that I'm working on with Nick Thierry as a way to kind of continue to dismantle white supremacy and really dispel this notion that the way to acknowledge or fight against racism is to be colorblind. Well, we know anything you're blind in, right, is a hindrance. When you the car has side view mirrors to help you, and you have to look back so you look at your blind spot. So essentially this shirt is to remind us that we all need to check our blind spots and see color and as a way to continue to dismantle white supremacy.
Sure.
But from an advice perspective, like a couple things that I would say, and this is advice that I'm saying as I've just learned it, and it was very powerful for me in my present life.
Sure.
And it came to me, I was on a run a couple weeks ago, and it was just a thought that broken crayons steal color. So I was on a run, I was like, yeah, I've heard that before. They do. And when I got back home, that thought kept replaying, and as I started to think about it, it was like, yeah, broken crayons steal color, and the beauty of that is when you break a crayon, it actually colors better. Because now you can shade and you can color in darker, you can shade in lighter, you remove the paper in the wrapper, you remove some of the things that have hindered that color crayon to perform at its best. If you go to true artist studios, you see all their crowns, they're like down to the nub, right?
Trust me, I know.
So I thought that was so beautiful, is that sometimes when we've been broken in something, it's like that disqualifies us, but it's like, no, when you've been broken or you felt like you went through something that broke you, now the truest essence of who you are can be used, and you can shade, now you can be effective in life. Just like the color crayon, to color in darker, to color in lighter.
Amazing.
We're going to take the wrapper off, and you just get to be, who you are.
Love that.
I would encourage anybody that's listening to know, like, broken crayons still color. And in your brokenness, understand that now you can be the most effective you. It's not a hindrance.
Yes. I love that.
Thank you. That was something that I was like, wow, that inspired,
profound.
Inspired me.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'll say is keep going. You'll get there. Like, we're talking about resiliency, and I can't tell you enough how many times people get discouraged or talk to me as it pertains to getting on at Nike or Adidas or within these industries that seem so daunting. And what I can tell them is, like, don't quit. You have to have some stick-to-itiveness in anything you're doing in life, and understand that your journey along the way, like, that's the beauty of it. Like,
100%.
We spend so much time trying to get there, like, and if you spend your whole life trying to get there, like, let me tell you, you watch an award show, and this artist, the Grammys, they would have taken like 2 years to put this album together, and here it is, you get this Grammy award, and you're on this stage for 30 seconds before they're playing the music for you to get after. So if you didn't enjoy the last 2 years,
exactly,
2,
or
3,
5 or 10,
however many years of creating this body of work, this 30 seconds of you being on the stage is gonna, if that's the only thing you're waiting to enjoy, like, that's, life sucks. And so
I couldn't have said that better. Thank you for saying that
journey.
Yes.
In every way, and learn yourself. I like what you said, is that we signed up to live.
Yeah.
And really the journey of self-discovery. But really, like I like to say, we're on a journey of unlearning. Because I truly believe that when we were children, when we were kids, we had a lot of things right about life. Like, I think about kids when they're walking down the street, like, if that child wants to skip because they feel they're going to skip. And as adults, we have an inclination to skip, and we're like, nope. Keep walking.
Yeah, I'm
being rigid.
proper or whatever.
They're going to think I'm, and so we can unlearn.
They're going to think
they're going
dot.
Yeah, exactly what I'm.
Rules are lives.
Right.
Like eliminate that out of your life,
Get
and
it
you will enjoy every journey you're on. You're 100% right. I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
like,
that's exactly it. It's like unlearn those things that keep you boxed into a framework created by other people.
Yeah.
You know, to your point, created by what others think. That's the box that we sequester ourselves in, and then we're like, like let yourself go.
You have one life. You cannot allow others to dominate how you should live that.
No.
You know what I mean? And I look, that was a hard learning thing even for me, because I, like you said, I had to unlearn a lot of what, even again, I wasn't even born here.
Yep.
Right? Like I was brought here.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old, landed, and now I had to conform to be cool, to fit in, to talk, to this. So, and then I grew up, and then obviously when you can't speak, you're afraid to be made fun of. You're afraid to be this, you're afraid to be that. I had to wear a certain color. I had to wear a baggier jean, whatever it was. Like all those things to just be liked.
Yep.
And then I realized, like, I am already liked. I am already loved. I don't need that person's approval of whether my shit is cooler or not, or my design is cool or not, because why am I asking somebody that can't draw anyway?
That part.
Right?
That part.
Why am I asking, and then we have people who like to say things to you as if they had gone through the same thing that you want to go through.
Right.
They never did it.
You're like, how do you want to tell me how to climb the mountain and so you don't climb?
Exactly. And so that's the number one thing that I always get from people. It's like, how do you do this? I stop caring about what others think.
Yep.
I stop, like, you should be focused on graphic design. No, I shouldn't be focused on what you think I should be focused on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and discover it on my own. Yep. And if you end up being right,
then I'll come work.
You know what I'm saying?
Later.
Like, and if I end up being, but at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong.
Yep. It's all
There's only my life.
It's your life.
And experiences. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I highly agree with you there. I love that point. I love that you drove it home throughout your whole story if you didn't. And look, what did we talk about? Our entire conversation was about your story of resilience, your story of keep going. Because we could talk about Nike.
Yeah.
We could talk about this, but that's cool. You got a great job. I'm proud of you, but you went further than that. And I know you'll go further than that as well. And I'm excited to hopefully, my goal is to every year or two, I'm going to try to reconnect with my interviewers and sort of see where they're at, because again, because resilience isn't one thing, it moves with you. So with that, I like to ask my people just at least one question at the end. It's very direct and it's pretty much the same. And that is, with one word, if you can, define your state of mind. And it's funny because resilience is that it's a pool of all these words and experiences. And, my thing is what do you tap into the most to implore your state of mind? Because your state of mind gets you through those tough times, those good times. So with one word,
I'm trying to synthesize it into one word. I'll talk through it and then I'll get to the word.
Okay.
Because I'm definitely at a place in life where you look around and you look at what your life is and you're like, wow, you take inventory, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is this, this is that. And then you step back and say, now for me, like, wow, God, like, what is it that you want to do for my life now? Where is it that you want to take me? Am I walking into purpose? What is the, there is a scripture in the Bible that says we'll go from glory to glory. And so when I think of that, I'm like, okay, God, what is the next level? And so for me, I'm definitely, one word that I would describe to say my state of mind now would either be contemplative or content, and that's definitely a place powerful. That a word contentment is a word that I've struggled with a lot because I was always like, well, how do you become content and achieve and be
yes, keep going.
Contentment is the coming to the place of recognizing that I'm good and I'm good regardless, because of all the things that I already am. It's coming to a place of understanding that there's nothing out there that is going to further my value or further who I am or further my gifts and talents. And so now I can just rest and be content in me. And in resting and being content in me, now I'm like, okay, where else can me go?
Yes.
Versus sometimes ambition is the thing that forces you to look and search and get busy doing. And for me, I'm in a state of being. I'll say that. And so I'll go back and I'll say, for me right now, if I were to describe my state of mind, I'm at a place of being.
I couldn't have put that together if I tried. That was remarkable. I love how you used the word content to describe your state of mind, because I just appreciate that so much. From my heritage perspective, I was taught to always be in a sense of contentment, meaning that just because you're content with who you are doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out there and go achieve and collect and do things and be creative. But really, it's about bringing who you are, your content self, to the mission in which is in front of you. And so with that mentality, I think all things are possible. And I think how you have that now at such a young age is profound to me, because, again, in my heritage, in my culture, like, knowing that you are content gives you freedom, and freedom to do whatever it is you want to do, because you're bringing your whole self to that thing. And I love that because it connects also to your purpose today, which is, not only are you working and doing your other things, but you're also mentoring and giving back through the School of Business at Portland State, which, I got to give you props for that. It's amazing. I love that. I love the idea of giving back. It's always been a part of who I am. So we definitely connect on that level. So thank you. Thank you today for coming on and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge with us. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I am excited to follow you. So tell the people, where they can follow you, where they can see you, where they can reach out to maybe get a consult for your marketing work, because I know I will for our brand and everything. So share with where people can find you, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Awesome. Well, I want to first say thank you for having me on. This has been an absolutely fabulous conversation. Yeah. And the more we talk and the more we tell our story, it's cathartic. And so, we overcome by the power of our testimony. And so thank you for giving me the space to continue to heal and grow and overcome through sharing my story. You all can find me at Instagram at Deborah Dom, or LinkedIn, my first and last name, Domonique Debnam. Please reach out. I love to connect with anybody who's looking for, like you mentioned, consulting and or just mentorship. I'm a firm believer in paying it forward. So any way I can help you, if I can, I will.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. So there you have it. Content State of Mind with Domonique. Man, she's an amazing person that you guys got to go follow. We're on season 2 of Art of Resilience. I hope you enjoyed this episode full of gems and wisdom. Please seek out Dom. She's an amazing person to follow. I hope you enjoyed this. Take care. See you next time. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of The Art of Resilience. If this episode helped you in any way, please drop a comment, subscribe, or share this episode to help a friend. Thanks to our sponsors, Portland Gear and Portland State University School of Business. If you'd like more, check out refutees.com for more episodes, our newest Refutees campaign, events, resources, and my upcoming book, Art of Resilience. Here's a freebie. Use code FREESHIPPING right now and help us grow the awareness and the brand. Till next time, keep growing your state of mind.